on the anatomical Jersey Shore with fists bumping like a chin. Think I got a hole in my armpit. Maybe that's the other one, but either way, we're gonna talk about inflammation in this episode. So buckle up, get ready for the ride. But inflammation, as I mentioned at the end of the last video here, so that video behind me, discussing the cells of the dermis and discussing the dermis, discussed or touched on inflammation. So inflammation is a defense mechanism of the body, but in excess it can be a bad thing. So in moderation, inflammation is it helps us defend our body and protect ourselves, but in excess it can be harmful. So inflammation does result in vasodilation, increased capillary permeability, and attraction of white blood cells. So let's break down each of those and we'll discuss what they do. So vasodilation, obviously the increased diameter of the blood vessels. If you think about it, kind of common sense, it allows more blood, which means more O2, more nutrients, more white blood cells to reach the damaged tissue. So say I don't know, you bang your elbow off something or sprain your wrist, it's going to become inflamed. This allows more blood, more O2, more nutrients, more white blood cells to get to that damaged tissue. Also increases capillary permeability, so this more blood can cross the barrier of the capillaries. It's not as closed loop. There's a greater exchange of nutrients and blood and all that stuff. So obviously more blood crosses the barrier, so more oxygen can go across the barrier, more nutrients can go across the barrier, and also more white blood cells, which helps to remove the pathogen. So you got a damaged wrist, you're going to increase that amount of blood crossing the barrier, and there's also going to be more blood flowing through due to the vasodilation. So the vasodilation and the increased capillary permeability do work hand in hand a little bit. The vasodilation obviously allows more blood to travel to a certain area at once. Increased capillary permeability allows more blood to cross over the capillary barrier and exchange nutrients and ultimately help heal the damaged tissue and pathogen there. So also the increased capillary permeability will allow the cells to have the nutrients necessary to replace the damaged tissue. So vasodilation, increased capillary permeability, those are results of inflammation. And last but certainly not least, the attraction of white blood cells. So inflammation actually calls more white blood cells to the area, which help aid in the immunity and ultimately removing the virus or pathogen or whatever is causing the inflammation, put it that way. So the inflammation does call more white blood cells to an area. So it's kind of like yo lay, and all the white blood cells just come traveling through the blood to the area of the damaged tissue. So inflammation results in vasodilation, results in increased capillary permeability, and an attraction of white blood cells as well. So those are the results of inflammation. Now the signs of inflammation. Should be somewhat review once we start discussing it. It might not make sense right off the bat, but be like, oh wait, I've had inflammation before. But inflammation signs of it are warmth, so that's due to the vasodilation, more blood flowing through a certain area at once. Warmth, so wrist might be warmer. Let's say if you sprain your wrist. Redness, that's due to vasodilation as well. Obviously, the oxygen in the blood makes it appear more red. Edema, aka swelling, so whenever you sprain whatever or have any form of inflammation, things tend to swell up. That's due to too much fluid in the interstitial space. Fourth sign of inflammation is pain. That's really due to the edema, so too much fluid, too much swelling. It causes say the wrist to hurt or anything like that because it's swelled up. Swelling hurts. If you ever stubbed a toe, even it starts to swell up, or a finger, it hurts. Swelling does an edema, that excess fluid in the interstitial space, it does hurt. And then fifth sign of inflammation is a decreased functionality, and that's due to the edema, essentially the swelling, excess fluid in the interstitial space, which leads to pain, and the pain and edema essentially cause the decrease in functionality. So if I sprain my wrist, we'll continue with that example. I'm not going to be able to use my wrist too well, put it that way. So think of Just when someone, say, breaks an ankle and it becomes red and swells up. We've all seen maybe an athlete on TV said just a gruesome injury. Their ankle might be the size of a softball. Yeah, so it swells up. It's red if you can see it, and obviously can't walk. He or she can't walk on it. Let's say with the broken ankle due to the pain, the swelling, which obviously leads to the decreased functionality there. So if you think all these things through, they do make sense. But inflammation results in vasodilation, increased capillary permeability, and attraction of white blood cells. And the signs of inflammation are the warmth, redness, edema, which is too much fluid in the interstitial space or excess fluid in the interstitial space, uh, pain, and decreased functionality as well too. So that wraps it up, puts a cute little bow on top of our discussion on inflammation.